So, hello everyone. As I mentioned this morning, my name is Milewicz, and I am a software engineering researcher and senior member of technical staff in the Department of Software Engineering and Research at Sandia National Laboratories. My talk today is titled Building and Sustaining an RSE Department at Sandia National Laboratories. I'd like to give special thanks to my colleagues Dina Vigil and Jim Lundbring, who contributed to the publications this presentation is based on, and I am excited to talk about our department's work at Sandia to build career pathways for RSEs. But first, I'd like to give a call out to Nicole's earlier presentation on diversity and inclusion among RSEs, because I always try to have a tie into other folks' presentations, so I added a bonus slide. Just a little bit of context and why that matters, and I want to carry that idea forward into the discussion later. So I mentioned that I'm a researcher, so my research at Sandia focuses on software engineering, which is to say that I study how software is created, and I'm very interested in the factors that lead to high-quality software systems. And within that context, I am deeply interested in questions of ethics, diversity, and inclusion. So software development, as you know, it's a fundamentally human activity. It is created by humans, it is for humans, and it should serve the interest of our society and reflect the values that we hold. And as a researcher, I'm interested in studying the impact of diversity on software development and articulating effective strategies for creating inclusive cultures in that context. And as someone who is on the autism spectrum myself, someone who is LGBT, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to go on the record and just say that addressing diversity and inclusion is very critical to the long-term success of the RSE movement, as I understand. So RSEs, virtually by definition, arrive at the field from very diverse backgrounds. It's a highly intersectional discipline. And for that reason, ensuring that everyone has a voice and a presence and a sense of belonging is important to RSE's personal and professional development. So for scientists and engineers, software engineers included, as we grow in our education and in our careers, we're not just learning some mechanical set of skills. What we're really learning is what it means to be something. We pick up all kinds of norms and narratives and ways of seeing the world that shape our identity as professionals. And an important goal of RSE organizations, and one of the reasons why we're all here today, is to tell that story and to frame who we are and what we do. And for that very reason, we have to consider what we can do as a community to promote diversity and inclusion and to make it part of the conversation. That's vital to creating a vibrant community of practice, and I just wanted to make sure I said something to that effect to back up what Nicole was saying earlier. So for today, what I'm going to focus on, with all that in mind, is that you may recall that the abstract for this event made reference to a recent NSF-funded workshop calling attention to the growing diversity of actors in research software development. So the past decade has seen a dramatic growth in demand for scientific computing, and we know that that demand can no longer be attractively met by domain scientists and mathematicians working in isolation, like on their own bespoke research scripts. So this has led to a broadening of the community to include RSEs, DevOps and IT professionals, researchers, and by researchers here, I don't just mean domain scientists and mathematicians, but also software engineering researchers like myself, social scientists, and others. And with any novel, multidisciplinary effort, there's a question. How do we bring all of these folks together, both organizationally, in the sense of teams and careers, and tactically, in the sense of integrating skill sets and perspectives to better practices, processes, and so on. And at Sandia, the Department of Software Engineering and Research, where I'm from, aims to answer that very question. We've assembled what we consider to be an integrated cross-disciplinary team, and I'd like to share with you our recent history, our strategy, and our experiences as an RSE group within a research center at a national lab. So, as for who we are. So our group is part of the Center for Computing Research at Sandia, which provides cutting-edge R&D in computational science and engineering. As an RSE team, our department provides flexible, on-demand staffing for development, consultation, and support to other departments within the Center for Computing Research. And our goal is to advance both the study and the practice of software engineering in the scientific domain. And what I mean by that is, one, we want to bring software engineering expertise to the labs as an RSE team, but also we want to be innovators who are pioneering new and better ways of working with and thinking about research software. So as for our origins, our department formed in late 2018, I'd say, and it was the culmination of several years worth of effort to network RSEs across our center. So the predecessor to our department was the Software Engineering Maintenance and Support, or SEMS project, which was a network of different software professionals that were split across many different research departments, all working together to meet certain common software engineering needs. So SEMS was very successful in this, and that's what spurred leadership to push for an official department. As for why that's significant, why it's kind of important in our story, first and foremost, bringing software-focused staff under one roof enables them to interact more closely with others like themselves. It opens up opportunities to collaborate within a community of practice. Second, we found that, as others here can note, computational science and mathematics organizations tend to value software insofar as it advances the science. And that can make it very difficult to build a rewarding career on software itself. So creating an official department makes software engineering a first-order concern for the current organization. It sends a signal to everyone that we value those skills and that kind of expertise. So third, though, a new department was really good was a boon for hiring because it gave us a manager and a team with a software focus. So prior to the reorganization, as I said, we had managers who recognized the importance of software-focused efforts of RSEs, and they set aside hiring slots to fill those kinds of needs. But no manager's primary focus was software, and that limited strategic planning and the ability to prioritize in this area. So when trying to hire good software professionals, good RSEs, it's better to describe a department with a specific mission than a staff of people who do RSE work, rather than saying, well, it's not so much a department, it's more of an informal network. That doesn't sell well, right? So having a department was great for hiring. And finally, I'd say that it's enabled us to expand our scope to include a research focus. So I mentioned I'm a software engineering researcher. That's the study of software systems and their development, their operation, and maintenance. And we believe that research and practice in software engineering have always been deeply connected, and that it would be necessary and naturally expected that we would bring the two together under the same roof. So in that sense, our department not only provides software engineering as a service to scientific software teams, but we also seek to improve upon the practice of software engineering itself. So as for how this all comes together, we've spent a lot of time. And I mentioned this in the panel discussion, that we've worked really hard to develop a shared vision of how our multidisciplinary team fits together. And what you're seeing in this presentation is the end result of a long process of teaming and consensus building. So in our vision, our team structure follows what we call a research, develop, and deploy workflow, or RDE pattern, centered around 3 principal workflows. We aim to cultivate a critical mass of staff in each of these capability areas, and each of them are meant to mutually reinforce the other. That's why when I came up with a diagram for our vision, I used a Penrose triangle because I see them all kind of interconnected and mutually reinforcing. And everyone is able to participate in one or more of these workflows, though people may focus on one in particular over the other. So the first one, research, is that our team conducts fundamental and applied research in software engineering. So specialists in this focus area tend to have a PhD in computer science or domain science, and they have a passion for software engineering. That includes myself. So given the importance of our work for the nation, we feel that we have a responsibility to act on the basis of the best available evidence. We find that without sufficient understanding, we run the risk of solving the wrong problems, having the right solutions go unused, or just failing to seize emerging opportunities. And a key way in which we acquire and retain that understanding is through rigorous systematic investigation, that is research. And for that reason, we actively participate in the software engineering research community to try and bring the best ideas back to Sandia through evidence-based practice, and hopefully create new knowledge for improving how we work on scientific software. So this is an area where we encourage our RSEs to participate. Not only are our RSEs involved in research literature reviews, experiments with stakeholders, they also publish their own white papers, their own experience reports at workshops and conferences for software engineering, because we believe that software engineering is an applied science. And so that we have research in our own right that is separate from like the domain researchers that we work with. The next one, and where we have the majority of our people, is in the develop workflow. So a key element of our work is in teaming with application and algorithm researchers to provide embedded development and maintenance and support. The people who do this kind of work tend to be research software engineers of various stripes. That ranges from, say, computer science graduates to staff with a background in science or mathematics, and then transition to an RSE role. The majority of our team, about like 23, 24-ish people, fit this description. So one important type of software development service that our department provides is scientific programming. So that's working directly with research teams to develop better capabilities for the kind of HPC software they want to put out there. And that requires a lot of domain-specific knowledge and skills, like familiarity with doing algorithms, experience using MPI, OpenMP, CUDA, and so on. Our team also provides software development services for other core software engineering needs, like testing, putting together build systems, and other things that are not specific to the HPC domain. Also, as part of our outreach, our team regularly offers training to researchers on useful topics, like here's how to do Git workflows, here's how to do testing, right? So that's another important part of our how we engage with the rest of the center. And then finally, deployment. So we believe that robust, scalable, and sustainable cyber infrastructure for software projects is vital to the scientific computing mission of our center. And that is why we have staff who focus more on DevOps and or IT service management. And those people are leading those efforts. So case in point, we maintain Jenkins-based build and test farms. We have a common dependency management system that we deploy out to all these different machines. We provide support for like off-the-shelf tools like Jira and Confluence. And we also create tailored infrastructure solutions for projects. So how this all comes together. So we believe it's important to have a critical mass of skills in each workflow in order to have a holistic picture of, have a holistic picture of how to best prioritize and plan and execute activities. And I won't say that we have like the final say on the right way to organize an RSE group, but we do believe that this arrangement helps our team to be more creative and cohesive and productive. So the way we see it is that our research work, it helps to create new knowledge, it assists with development and deployment activities. Then our development work helps keep researchers like myself grounded in real world needs and in turn informs deployment activities. And then our deployment work drives research priorities and tooling and support and enables our development work. So it's really important in a multidisciplinary team to have a shared mental model, a vision for how all the pieces fit together. And this is what we've arrived at for our team. So what's the bottom line here? How does this approach to teaming affect the products and the services we offer to our customers? So in all of our efforts, our goal ultimately is to empower domain scientists and mathematicians to work more efficiently and effectively. And there are many different ways in which we impact their productivity, many of which are subtle, but I'd like to just walk you through the case of a typical science developer in our center and how we make an impact on her life. So I've kind of arranged a list here. Okay, so first, she's able to track her team's work through Jira and Confluence. We offer and maintain that. Her ongoing research into next generation algorithms is directly supported by an RSE that we provide. When she manages her repository, she uses a Git workflow that we trained her on, that we help set up for her. And then whenever she submits a pull request, we have tools that will detect this and help launch build and test jobs on our server farm in order to ensure her code performs as intended. And then her software in turn relies on a very complex system of library dependencies, and we seamlessly provision this through an environment module system, which allows us to deploy everywhere from laptops to clusters, you name it. And then recently, she reached out to our team for consultation on how to do software design better. And we are in the process of compiling peer-reviewed literature and industry best practices to help inform those decisions. And then finally, the other day, she sends a colleague about an interesting talk she attended by a leading expert in software engineering, Ian Costin-Cave, and gave a talk for us. We invited him. When she encounters a software-related problem, she submits a ticket to the center help desk, and we operate that help desk. And then she has a project that looks a project website that looks really nice, cutting edge, right? Makes us look really professional. We built that, right? Now, as for what this all matters for our RSEs, we believe that having a workforce that spans the entire R&D lifecycle, from early research in software engineering to customer support, makes us far more productive than if we say solely specialized in embedded development work. And for our RSEs, when they encounter unknowns or hit a wall, they're able to engage with people like myself. They'll find answers. They work with our DevOps and ITSM folks to leverage their infrastructure and their expertise to track their work, to execute tests, to handle tickets. A lot of the heavy lifting is done, is done for them, and then they're able to work alongside and learn from fellow RSEs to grow as professionals. So conclusion. Like I said, we don't claim to have the definitive answer for how to structure an RSE organization, but we do hope that our experiences I've shared today can contribute to that broader discussion around this topic. We do believe that an interdisciplinary strategy, one that integrates RSEs into a team alongside computing specialists from other disciplines, can help them become more productive help them to continue to grow in their careers. And we also believe that this serves the needs of our customers as well. So with that, thank you for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions you all may have, here for the rest of the day.
Great, thank you.
Questions. So I think this is super cool.
we
have like a similar kind of group where can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm having some trouble hearing. Volume's a little soft.
Yeah, I can talk louder. Is that better?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm really interested in this idea because we have a similar effort at LLNL. And one thing I've been thinking about is this kind of balance between internal and external initiatives. So what you just described is internal in that you're helping code teams to get their CI and their repos and to feel supported. But I guess my question is there an ability to extend? I would imagine you have this internal knowledge base of just knowing how to do things and do them well. What is the potential for extending that to more of an external community resource? For example, to talk about setting up CI, like that, is there opportunity for that? Is that something that we could work on together?
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, we have been trying to make some efforts to that. Like we contribute back to BSSW when we can, in better scientific software. We'd like to be able to take Packager tutorials and such and move them elsewhere, right? But I think there's a lot more opportunities to help, more like a community engagement angle, right? To be able to work with other teams like LLNL and elsewhere in order to promote best practices. I'm all for that. And I see you have another question here on how does working on the applied science of software engineering map back into creating community resources around best practices? And I can speak to that. So pretty much when we say best practices in software engineering, all of those, generally speaking, all of those tie back into a very deep interconnection between software engineering research and software engineering practice, which kind of emerged around the same time. So I think of these things kind of as two sides of the same coin. When we want to be able to promote best practices to our customers and say, this is the way you should be testing, this is the way you should be building your software. But to justify that, we have to say we have evidence to believe that leads us to believe that these practices will actually lead to to certain outcomes, like more higher efficiency, reduced time to science, and so on. So I think that being able to build that case to our customers, as well as for our own sake, of forging a consensus around best practices, like research is very critical to that. I don't know if that answers your question, but I can speak more to that. But
I have a follow-up question, and it's a harder question, so be prepared. Sure. No, I'm just kidding. This is something I've been thinking about too. So national labs, like historically, haven't had the need to define the role of RSE because the people that work on research software are sort of well-funded. And it also is the case that there's so much knowledge, sort of as we've just been talking about at national labs, that could benefit the RSE community. So how can national labs just generally do better at reaching back and helping the RSE community in whatever way that they could?
I think one way in which I have a little bit of a bias, but I think one way in which they could help reach back is to build more connections to, say, like the software engineering community more broadly, including the software engineering research community. So, like for example, this year I'm going to be on the one of the committees for the International Conference of Software Engineering, and this is a place. These are the kind of events of this where you see Microsoft, you see Facebook, you see all these different companies come there and talk about these are their problems. They try to reach out to the software engineering community. I think I'm among the first. I'm looking back at these 30, 40 years. I can't find anyone else within the national lab who's ever on one of these committees, which surprises me, right? And I feel like getting our name out there and saying we care about software engineering, going to all these kinds of software engineering events and so on, and signaling to the rest of the world that the national labs care about software engineering is a great way to help RSEs, right? By positioning ourselves as sort of as an ecosystem of organizations that care about good software engineering practices.
I love that.
Yeah, I think Raphael, you have a question? Your hands up.
I do have a question. Thanks. And
thanks for all of this. It's great to hear what you guys are doing at Sandia. I'm just curious about the funding model for your group. Yeah, could you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my manager would be a little more informed on the intricacies and the particulars of it, but I can speak in generality. It's easy. Okay, so we are funded. Sandia is a matrix managed organization, which is to say that we have a certain allocation of our time to different projects and tasks. Some amount of it is from center-directed funding. So there's a pot of money that is centered, that comes from the center for providing software engineering, maintenance, and support, supporting our build farms, other like that. And then, but the bulk of our money comes from working with research teams. So I have a colleague of mine who works on a climate science team, right, and helps do the software development for them, right, as an RSE. And they pay out a certain amount of money in order to support our all our efforts, both for that person directly as well as more broadly to the whole team, right? So a lot of it is through embedded work with research teams, but we also have other funding streams like center funding, saying we need this money so to support the build farms, other things like that. And then there is a third would be research funding. So like we apply for internal and external sources of research funding because we are a research team, in a research organization. We're both an RSE team. We also do research in our own right, and that's another way for us to pull in additional funding.
Okay, that makes sense. So for the groups, the first source of funding, the groups that are essentially hiring your group to integrate with them, when they write their proposals to DOE or any other source, does your group work with them? Or basically what I'm getting at is, do you define what work needs to be done in their projects and the scope of that, or do they, or is it?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, right? So on one hand, they have things they want to get done. They want to develop new capabilities. They want to operate on GPUs for this algorithm, you name it, we can provide that, right? But we also use this opportunity to get our foot in the door and start talking about good software engineering practices. Have you considered testing? What about your build system? What about, I don't know, well, you're looking to open source your software, let's work through that, right? So there's ways in which we are influencing the conversation, but they also have immediate needs that they're coming to us for.
Okay, gotcha.
If that helps answer your question.
Yep. I've got another question if I can. How old is this group? Like, were you around when it started?
So actually, yes, I was. So here's what's interesting. I was hired on as a postdoc. They said, this would be a pioneering position. You don't have a department yet. Not technically. We want you on as a software engineering person without a software engineering department, but we're going to form one. We're going to form a department, and you just need to survive in the wilderness and chop down trees and boil drinking water until the cavalry arrives, which I did. And now we have a team. Yeah, eat berries. Yeah, I survived for a couple of years on scavenging berries and other things. But then we finally had this organization. We brought them all together. We brought together all the people that were already on that team, already on software Sims team, right? And then hired on new people. And now we have our department, which I'm very happy about.
Very cool. Congrats.
Customer. So Ian here has a question that about use of the term customer. And yes, I do use these terms kind of interchangeably. That's still finding the right language for this, because customer kind of implies that they are separate from us and we're going to them, they have a set of requirements, we develop some software and that's it, right? Like in conventional software engineering. But that's not exactly the relationship. It's more like we embed on team, we're embedded in teams. And as a result, I think of them more as partners, right? But I use the term, I should be better about my language on that, because I don't think customer exactly captures the nature of the relationship. You're right.
But have you had any issues? Like, has that caused, you think, a relationship to turn into more of a customer client? You need to make this for us, and they get frustrated when it's not delivered exactly as promised as you would.
Yes, and this is something that's why I was asking, for instance, about the research credit, right? Making sure that people are credited for their work is really to make sure that our RSEs are seen as part of these teams, as people with we're co-equal in skills and knowledge and perspectives and all that, right? We don't want to be seen as a means to an end. We don't want to be seen as we are a part of the same research center. We have the same job title. Like officially, I'm a member of technical staff. All of the RSEs that I'm involved with are members of technical staff. So are the people on these research teams, right? We're all equal organizational, and that I think that it's important to make sure that comes across. Oh, Scott, which one? Which colleague? You have a colleague that's a scrub master. Yes, I love Wade. He's fantastic. Keeps the ship afloat. Yeah, he's great. Any other questions?
So I have a question. We're at a major research university, and I used to work at Oak Ridge once upon a time in another life. But I wonder, do you ever, as far as collaborations or responsibilities, does Sandia feel the need to interact with academics or industry
Yes.
outside? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we work out. A lot of us are based out in the deserts of New Mexico. Most good ideas, by definition, happen in places that are not there. The rest of the earth. And we have to have a strong relationship with academia and with industry in order to meet our objectives. So especially for like the Center for Computing Research, we are an outward-facing center. We regularly work with the rest of the outside world. In fact, that's why all of our facilities are based outside of like the main. Like we share space like with the Air Force Base, right? But all of our Center for Computing Research is located entirely outside of that to make it easier to have academics from around the world come and visit us and work with us, right? So then that is something that's very important for our team in particular, is forging those kinds of relationships with software engineering professionals, with software engineering researchers elsewhere, so we can bring the best ideas back to the labs. So yes, it's very, very important.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's this is something that I've been trying to decide, like what can I bring to this community as a research facilitator and not really an RSE, what I'm always looking to make trades, right? Like what kind of things can I do with my expertise that would help lift things that or be an easy lift that I could also trade for favors for
Yes.
on the RSE side. And I'm not sure if that's something you've thought about, but.
Oh, absolutely. I'm in precisely the same position. So I'm a researcher by trade. I have a PhD. I have other researchers ask me, so are you IT? I've had that asked before. I said, no, I have a research just like you. It's that I study software, right? But in terms of how I work with RSEs, like for example, I'm more or less like a staff librarian for the whole team of RSEs. People regularly come to me with questions about, okay, what's the right way to apply this design pattern? What's the most effective way of gathering software engineering requirements? And I will go off and I will pull together the resources to help meet those needs. Like I regularly prepare, I do literature reviews, and I regularly interface with all of my colleagues in order to help us deliver our best practices, right? So that's a way in which someone who's not an RSE, works with and integrates myself with RSEs.
Yeah, I want to second that. I'll add a note that I put in the chat. I feel like it's very easy to get disconnected from like real world problems. So I'll start working on like a model for a solver or parsing location lists from Dork or something. And I get so immersed in these very like technical things that I kind of lose the big picture of like why I'm doing this in the first place. So I think, at least when I think of like research facilitators, I think the kind of communication that can happen is just gentle, or not even gentle, not gentle reminders of like, these are the problems that I'm facing. Here's a bottleneck, something that we don't have that could have, or just even just brainstorming. Like those kind of conversations will kind of keep someone like myself grounded and kind of focused, like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I'm really working on this for at the end of the day. Because
Right.
It's easy to get just totally lost in enjoying working on technical things and spend a lot of time doing something that may not, trickle down back to the researchers, which probably would not be a good thing.
This is what social scientists might call articulation work. It is the work that makes work happen. being able to contextualize and understand how our work fits into the bigger picture, to understand what's involved, right? And yeah, that's something we also focus on as a team, is that, because we're all off doing different work embedded in different teams. But it's really important that we kind of understand how we all fit together as a team of, as an RSE team, and to help see the bigger picture.
Yeah, I'll throw my hat into the ring if this is, these discussions are going to happen. I'm always happy to bring reports back from my community, at least, or at least the communities that I'm part of. There's plenty of need, and I'm always wondering how to translate that into something that's real and move back and forth. And I guess that's rather the point of being kind of at the crossroads of IT and research. And but yeah, there's just never enough resources and things too. And so I think one of the biggest problems that I have is if I had to go and describe, like if someone asked me to set up a new research computing group on the moon or Mars or somewhere from scratch, I don't think I'd be able to do that, even though I've worked in those groups for 6 or 7 years now. And I think there's still a lot of knowledge that's pretty esoteric or specific to certain kinds of professionals that I don't have a way to capture. And so a lot of what I do is like write that down furiously and as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's what this presentation I just gave was based on papers we published, right? We sat down and said, who are we, right? Why are we here, right? And try to understand that and be able to answer that question if someone were to ask, right? That's it. We figure that's important. So, and that's what you're seeing when I'm talking about research, develop, deploy, and all that. That's all of us sitting down and trying to figure out what it is that that we do.